Hello and happy Friday, everybody. It's Sue from Ravens Escape Crafts. Welcome, 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 or welcome back. If you're new here, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Welcome to Ravens Escape Crafts, where we love the Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. We escape by doing crafts because reality sucks. And we talk about yarn and other stuff. How are you all doing this Friday? Here it is sunny but hot and humid and miserable. We went from cold and damp raining to hot and thunderstorms every day. So, I don't know. This weather is crazy. So I'm going to have you, I figured I'm desperately trying to finish this dish towel. I've been showing you this for a couple days. It's a lot of stitching. So I thought you guys could sit and chat with me while I desperately try to finish this dish towel. This one. Kind of got a funky pattern in the middle of it, but I kind of like it. See? So we're almost done. I have like this much left. So I thought you guys could sit and chat with me a little bit. This is the oh sorry, hold on. This is made with the Village Yarn Christmas cotton. And although this yarn is very soft, and it really is, I absolutely love how soft it is. It's not scritchy scratchy or rough like some Peaches and Cream is, or the Lily Sugar and Cream. I know we all know how rough and tumble that is. But this is actually a really soft cotton, but still makes my hands sore. So my fingers are like really sore from it. And I saw somebody said, and this makes sense, that the reason your fingers get sore when you're working with cotton yarn specifically is because cotton actually absorbs, unlike acrylic, and even wool will absorb the oils in your fingers. Oh, excuse me. My allergies are so bad. So that it absorbs the oils in your fingers, and that's why it makes your fingers sore. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Because, like I said, this is a really soft cotton, so I wouldn't have thought, but I've used this cotton several times before, and every time my fingers still get a little sore. Now, not, like I said, not nearly as sore as quickly as with, like, Peaches and Cream or Sugar and Cream. Hold on, I'm going to get a drink quick. I had to have my water. I did just have a granola bar, so it might be why I'm coughing. A little bit dry. But, yeah, so, but somebody said that it actually, like, absorbs the oils in your fingers. And that's why your fingers sort of hurt when you crochet with cotton for too long. And I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Because, like I said, I can work with acrylic forever and ever, and it does not make my fingers feel like this. But these fingers, the ones that hold the yarn and stuff, really get sore when I do too much cotton. So after making 4 washcloths, 2 face scrubbies, or 2 pot scrubbies, not face scrubbies, 2 pot scrubbies, and 2 big kitchen towels, and my fingers are a little tired of it. I'm ready to go back to acrylic. So, because this is, let's see, 232 yards, and this is my 5th ball, so it's over 1,000 yards of cotton that I've done in the last, this will be my 3rd day working on these. I was hoping to get it done last night, but it just didn't happen. yesterday got away from me a little bit, and I was working on some other stuff. I was working on my Etsy store a little bit, and I was working on my Pinterest a little bit, and I was working on my book a little bit because I need to make sure that I have it ready to read to you next week, and that I'm working ahead on it so that I can keep doing my novel days, my chapter a day or chapter a week. And like I said, if you listen to the novel and you really want me to read more, if you want me to read more sooner, I gladly can. I just need to hear from somebody that they want to hear more about what happens. So, I don't know. I'm just trying to make videos, see if I can get people to watch. Trying to get subscribers. Obviously, if you're watching this and can throw a like and subscribe on it, I get a few, but I'm working on it, and I'm not going to get discouraged because, eventually somebody will watch, right? And I see all sorts of other creators getting somewhere, and I just have to keep going. It's an important lesson, sometimes you just have to. It can get discouraging. I know my husband does a bi-weekly podcast, and and then on the off weeks he does something other than the podcast. Like sometimes he plays games or talks about Warhammer 40K, and so some weeks they'll play an actual game, or some weeks they'll paint and show painting tutorials and stuff. And for the longest time he was getting very little views, and he's been doing it for a while now, and he was kind of getting discouraged. And I said, look, we just got to look at it and start figuring out like what can we do better, what videos are getting good views, what can we do more of. And and here, now that he's been doing it for about 6 months, he started doing lives, which I don't have yet, so I can't do them. But I will, as soon as I get them, I will be doing some lives. Because I would love to sit and chat with everybody, but do crochet and chat. But he was getting kind of discouraged at one point, and because you see other channels with hundreds of thousands of followers or 1 million followers, and you're getting 6 views, and he was getting a little discouraged, and he's like, I keep trying and trying, and we only get so far. And I said, look, well, we gotta just keep working at it, and you're doing a good job, and we just gotta find your viewers. And so we've been working on it, and like I said, he's not at 100,000 people or whatever, but we're getting there. You know what I mean? Every week he's getting consistently more and more views, and learning tips and tricks, and getting out there into the community a little bit more. And he's getting more consistent viewership. He's also starting to get some engagement on his lives, which of course is really cool. And so I'm like, see, we just had to work on it, and we're getting there. It takes time. Unfortunately, this kind of thing without a influencer who makes you go crazy viral, it takes time. Like I watch, if you like to watch candy making, which I do, just because I find it fascinating. And there's a place called Hercules Candy in upstate New York, and they have a channel, and I absolutely love watching them. You get to know all the employees. It's really endearing. And they're a good story for this. They've had a channel for I think they said 9 years, 8 or 9 years now. And it's a family business. It's a family owned business. This husband and wife own it. They took it over from I think it's his family started it at their house. It was a little candy making business. And so Hercules, they started out making videos they actually had, the candy shop was actually in their basement of their house, and they started doing videos back then. It was a small candy company. The actual storefront was in the basement of their house, and now they've been making videos for, I think, like I said, they said 8 or 10 years. It's been a while, but they finally hit 1 million followers, and they've of course since moved into a much larger production and storefront, and now they're at the point where they're actually overselling what they can produce. So, and well, it did. So they made 1 million followers. I don't know. This was a couple months ago. They did a big video and they hit 1 million followers, and they did a big celebration video. I was so happy for it because, like I said, it's a family run business. The husband and wife run it. Their kids work there. Their son is the one who does the YouTube videos, and their daughter is actually, she's a she knows how to make candy. I know that. I've seen her make candy, but she primarily does a lot more with the shipping end of it, because that's become huge for them. They ship all over the place. So, but now they're at the point where, because of YouTube, they actually make too much. They have too many customers, which is a great problem to have. But they admitted, they were talking about it, and they said, look, it took us all these years to get to this place. It was not instant. Certainly wasn't instantaneous. It took years for them to get there, and then even more recently, some of the employees, one of their main candy makers, she started putting videos out on TikTok and got more. Julia from Hercules Candy, she started going on TikTok, and they got more viewers because of that. But again, it took them years to get that many that many subscribers. So, you got to remember that if you're doing these kind of videos. And it's hard to put yourself out there, and it's hard to make videos all the time. A lot of, I saw a thing where they were talking about podcasts, where everybody wants to start a podcast, except then when they don't do well, that most, 70 some percent of podcasts, or 80 some percent of podcasts never get past episode 7, because people put them out there thinking oh, I'm going to make this podcast and 1 million people are going to listen to it, and that's not what happens. So, and then they get discouraged, and then they stop. And so that, that's the thing too to remember. It takes a long time. It takes persistence. It takes growing, your community. It's just not a quick thing. And so I'm just going to keep making videos, and hopefully somebody watches them and likes them and enjoys spending time with me. I enjoy spending time with you guys. It really is nice for me to be able to put myself out there a little bit. And for anybody who thinks that this was easy for me, let me tell you, the first time I actually had to make videos of myself for YouTube, here's a fun little factoid. So when COVID happened, I was working for my kids' elementary school. I was actually working in the cafeteria as a cafeteria aide. I didn't do the food. I watched the kids while the teachers had lunch. And I also worked breakfast. In the morning, I was there to, watch the kids, make sure the kids got through the breakfast line. Like, all the kids would get there and they could go to the breakfast line. They didn't have to. But all the kids stayed in the cafeteria until right before school started, so that they weren't just, so the teachers had time in the morning to get themselves together so they didn't have kids just running around as soon as we opened the doors first thing in the morning. So, part of my job was I was one of the people in there during breakfast to watch the kids, make sure they didn't get out of hand, make sure the kids that were getting breakfast got breakfast, and did that in a timely and organized manner. And of course, dealt with the 500 spills involved in that because elementary school kids, and you give them a little plastic bowl of cereal and a carton of milk, and there will be spillage. So much spillage. And then, of course, difficulty opening things and difficulty with other children. And so, and like I said, I was not alone in there. There was every day certain teachers would come and would be in there with me too. So I certainly wasn't by myself. And then the other paraprofessional, she was in there. She used to watch the line for the most part and make sure kids, got into the breakfast line and stuff like that. So that's what I was doing when COVID hit. So, of course, now when the school closed, there was nothing for me to do, as far as there was no cafeteria anymore. So obviously, excuse me. Oh, in the very beginning, they said they were going to, in the very beginning, they said that like, just don't worry about it, because they didn't know what was going to happen. It was 2 weeks to flatten the curve, blah, blah, blah. And don't worry about it. We're going to, we'll pay you because we should be open again soon, yada, yada, yada. Well, the longer things went on, of course, it didn't work out that way. So, I was not comfortable with just getting paid to do nothing. So, I worked with a principal who, we had the best principal. I absolutely loved our principal. He was so good. I mean, he will tell you, he would say he was terrible with stuff over COVID because he struggled, but he was so supportive and so good, and we had amazing meetings where he, literally like told us he's trying his best. He don't know what the hell to do, and how well everybody was handling things and stuff like that. So I, of course, said to him at the time, like, I'm not comfortable just sitting around doing nothing. What can I help with? Because I knew there was a lot of teachers that really were struggling with technology and things like that. There was, it was a whole new world for these poor teachers. And I said, like, what can I help with? So, like, I was always a little bit better with technology. I helped a lot of teachers with stuff. Just being as a cafeteria para. Because I learned a lot about computers and things when I worked at the car dealership. Somehow I ended up as the computer person for a time. I have no idea how that happened, but I was like the IT girl for a while until it got more than what I could handle. So So I talked to him, and one of the things that we were struggling with was the morning announcements. So, like when we were in school, of course, the kids would go to their classrooms, and then every day we would have morning announcements. And what was going on for the day, what was for lunch for the day, different, different things, events that were coming up. So they were struggling to try to figure out. They kind of wanted to still do the morning announcements. And of course, they did the Pledge of Allegiance during the morning announcements. And they announced whose birthday it was during the morning announcements. So I was like, well, I mean, if you want, they're like, do you think there's some way we could figure out how to do that? And I'm like, well, I can do them if that's what you want. So I ended up putting together every day a video on YouTube, where I would do all the things, people would send me what we needed to say on the announcements, and then I would do the birthdays, and we did a birthday song every day and showed you whose birthday it was, and we did the Pledge of Allegiance with the flag, and then I did I would do like a fun fact of the day, like today was, astronaut day or whatever, and then what happened today in history. I did one of those each every day. But the hard part was I had to, of course, be on camera. So it was like, I did Mrs. Sue. I was Mrs. Sue because everybody called me Mrs. Sue at school. So, so I mean, the thing I struggled with, and I think most people struggle with, is I had to make videos of myself. And I would, try to make these videos perfect. And I wanted to look, I would do my makeup and I would do my hair, and then I would sit there and I would do take after take and struggle with what I was saying. Because looking at myself on the camera and listening to myself was difficult. You really had to, I think most of us don't like looking at ourselves. When we see ourselves in the mirror, we see every single flaw. It's hard. It's really hard. You pick yourself apart, and I am, like I have said before, I am not, beauty pageant person. I have never been this pretty skinny person, you know what I mean? I've never been that. I've never in my whole life. And and I've struggled with it sometimes, and haven't we all? I mean, I've had friends, close girlfriends that I thought were absolutely gorgeous. I have a good friend that I think is gorgeous now, and she sees herself as anything but, she could list you 100 things that she would change. And I'm like, but you're so pretty, And I think that's typical for most of us. Women and men, you know what I mean? Because I know, my husband struggled with it a lot when he started recording. You have to face yourself. You have to look at yourself in the camera. You have to listen to yourself talk. And then, of course, those videos I had to edit a lot because I would record sections and then I had to put them all together into a video, and I added all sorts of pictures, so that, especially when I did like the things of the day. And I really struggled in the very beginning of looking at myself in the camera and stumbling over my words, because I just was so not confident in being able to talk on camera. And I looked at myself, and it was, like, who wants to look at this? Like, I'm not pretty. I'm not, nobody's going to want to see these, including me, you know what I mean? And I really struggled. I struggled a lot. And I it would take me so long to record a 2-minute thing because I would stop it. No. Bleh, and then I'd start again. Bleh, and I'd screw it up. And I knew it was because I was just I had no confidence in myself. I didn't want to look at myself in the camera. And it's hard. You really are faced with yourself. And, haven't there been countless movies and things where when you're faced with your own self, it's the most difficult thing. I can think of 2 examples being Star Wars. Luke has to face himself, and he freaks out. And again, the other one I can think of is Neverending Story, when Atreyu has to go through the Southern Oracle and face his own, is he true of heart, or if he doubts himself, then he'll get zapped. And it's a thing for, I think, most of us. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you've ever thought, like, I could never do this, you can. I'm going to tell you, it's not easy. It's not easy. And, the other hard part is, you're putting yourself out there for people to see. And all the imperfections that you have. And people are going to judge you. People are going to say nasty things. I've heard quite a few of them. But the other thing I learned from doing the morning announcements is, I would sit here at my computer and I would record day after day. I recorded, like I said, I did Monday through Friday. Every day I did a morning announcement. And I would, it only ended up being like a 10-minute video every day, but it was a lot of work because, like I said, I had to do all these different pieces, put everything together. I added all sorts of pictures, and it was quite the production. And so, I spent a lot of time working on it, but I sat here during COVID, just me and my husband and my kids, and my husband was at work. He worked most of the time because he's a mechanic. So it's just me with my camera, and me looking at myself, me listening to myself, me editing myself. I spent time every week going through and figuring out what I was going to do for the week, but that only took up so much time. I spent, like I said, an inordinate amount of time every day looking at myself, getting the video up for the next day so they could play it first thing in the morning. And slowly I got better with myself. I became more accepting of a lot of things about myself that I can't change. A lot of it took work. It took work for me to just say, screw it. I mean, this is me. This is me. And people like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. And then the part that I didn't expect was, because I would just be sitting here, like I said, by myself every day, making the morning announcement videos, uploading them to YouTube. Next day, the same thing. But what I didn't understand was that people were watching them. And not just the kids, but the parents, because a lot of, especially the younger kids, since it was elementary school, like kindergarten, first graders, a lot of the parents were there, especially in the first thing in the morning, to get their kids on the computer, and were watching with their kids to see what was going on. And of course, they were using my morning announcements to see if there was any updates for anything for the school. And then, of course, I was also doing the social media. I didn't even think of that. But I was putting videos up there too. And of course, everybody was relying on the internet, social media very heavily at that time because you couldn't, there was no papers going home from school and things like that. So what I didn't realize was that parents were watching these videos too, and the kids. And what was funny was we had an outdoor, toward the end of the whole mess. I had to go to the school because, of course, my kids were still attending at the school, and we had to go over there to get something. I forget what it was. And all these kids are like, Mrs. Sue, Mrs. Sue. And the parents like, oh my God, it's Mrs. Sue. And I'm like, oh, like people know who I am. People whose kids I hadn't met yet knew who I was. You know what I mean? And I'll never forget, like, one of the grandparents, she actually lives down the street, which is funny. I hadn't ever met her before. She lives partway down the block, so she's not right next door to me. She lives probably about 2/3 of the way down the block. She's, she was, because the bus stop is almost right in front of our house, and I went out to say goodbye, one of my kids was going on the bus, and I walked them out, and she was like, oh my God, it's Mrs. Sue. Oh my God. She stopped. And after the kids, she's like, wait. So after the kids got on the bus, she comes over to me and she's like, oh my God, you got us through so much with COVID. She's like, we looked so forward every morning. She's like, I watched your morning announcements every morning with my grandson, because she was watching her grandson, because her daughter was working. And she's like, every morning we watched you, and every morning you just made us smile. And I didn't realize I was doing that. I didn't realize, it was one of those things where I was just I was struggling internally doing my job, like looking at myself all the time. And I didn't ever take a minute to realize that I was having an impact on people, and that I was actually helping people get through COVID. I had no idea. And she wasn't the only one, but she's one that stopped me, and she literally like gave me hugs and was like, you really meant so much to us, and my grandson too, and we really looked forward to you every day. And if it didn't work, if the YouTube video didn't work, we got so sad. And and I was like, wow, I didn't realize I was doing that. And there was a lot, like every once in a while somebody said something, but I didn't realize, like I said, I never met this woman before. I never met her grandson before. I knew that some of the kids that I had previously worked with, that they would know me and stuff, but I didn't take into account that all the new kids were getting to know me through the YouTube channel. And I was like the lady from their TV screen. I was like a celebrity to them. So it was something I just didn't expect. So, so the whole point to all this is, like, if you're out there and you're a crocheter and stuff like that, and you've watched other people on YouTube and have considered making a channel, or you do anything, and you considered making a channel, and you think, I can't do that, you can. It's up to you if you want to. Like I said, it is not easy to have to look yourself in the face and listen to yourself all the time. It is not an easy task. It's something you have to get past. You're going to stumble and bumble. You're going to look at every flaw of everything. You're going to look at, it's hard. It's hard having to face yourself sometimes. But it's worth it. I learned, was one of my biggest takeaways from the whole COVID thing, is I actually learned to accept myself more. I really did. I know it sounds so cliche, and I know you're like, and I'm sure, if these videos ever get popular, I'm going to have trolls in the comments talking about how I should not have bothered, or how awful I look, because I've heard it before. And, you do have to definitely be prepared to have some thick skin if you're putting yourself out on the internet. If you know that you cannot handle it, that if people are going to start saying nasty things about the way you look, the way you sound, the way you dress, about your house, about anything like that, it might not be a good thing for your mental health to put yourself out on the internet. Like I said, through the years of doing different things with social media, I've heard it all. I mean, I've had so many people tell me that I look like a man, that I'm fat, that I'm ugly, that, okay, grandma, like, so many different things. I can't even tell you. And at this point, I'm like, I've reached a level of self-acceptance where it doesn't bother me. I mean, not to say it never does, but because I'm a human being. I'm a human being. But I don't dwell on it. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm just like, my thing is, people can be assholes. People are assholes in real life, and then you put them behind a keyboard where they don't have to look you in the face. They can be mega huge assholes. Like I said, I worked at a car dealership for 17 years. I dealt with the public for 17 years. I was a cashier sometimes. I answered the phone quite a bit. I even for a time made customer phone calls where we were trying to get them to fill out surveys positively, which was a stupid move. But I had to call customers' houses. I worked in lease retention. And so I got screamed at, yelled at, cursed at, called names. I mean, I had someone... I should just do a whole series on here of things that happened to me when I worked at the car dealership. Is that something you guys would like to hear? Because I got stories. But, yeah, I even had a guy one time. I'll just give you one, and then I'll get you guys out of here today. I'm sorry I keep chattering. I had a guy who came in. I worked, like I said, after I had my kids, I worked the evenings and weekends. So a lot of nights I was the cashier at night, which I was doing my other work, my accounting work because I was still sort of a controller. But I could do my accounting because we got a couple of customers would come in to pick their cars up after hours. And I would answer the phone, and then I had to get salespeople keys and stuff like that. But it wasn't like super busy the whole night. It was mostly just downtime. Unless they were really busy, and then I had to get a lot of keys or whatever. But, answering phones, and like I said, we'd only have a few customers that were picking up after hours. So that was no big deal. Well, I had a guy one night come in, and big guy. And when I say big, I mean like tall, broad, muscular, but like that, like, let's call it like sumo big, you know what I mean? Not that big, but but like not, he was a big guy. He was taller than me. I'm almost 6 foot tall. He was quite a bit taller than me. And you could tell that he had some muscle to him and stuff like that. And he came in, and he wanted to pick his car up, and so I gave him his bill, and he's like, oh, no, that's not what I agreed to pay. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't give you your car unless you pay what I have. If you have a problem with the bill, you have to talk to the guys during the day. Lily's having a fit. So, that was the rule. Like, I had a bill. I couldn't change the bill. I was just the cashier. So and all the guys from the shop were gone. So if somebody had a dispute with their bill, they had to leave the car and talk to the service manager or the service writers in the morning. or sometime the next day. So, of course, this is what I told him. I said, I can't give you your car because you owe money on it, and this is the amount that they told me you owe. And he's like, well, I'm not paying it. I said, well, okay, that's, I dealt with this a billion times, certainly not the first customer that said that to me. And I said, okay, that's fine. I said, you can gladly call whoever in the morning, and talk to them about it. I'm just very sorry I cannot give you your keys until, you pay the bill. Well, you can't do that. You can't do that. That's like stealing my car. And I'm like, no. But, like, we did a service, and it is within our rights. And I know this legally because I've dealt with it. I've been working there for over 15 years at this point. I knew what we could and couldn't do. So I said, legally, yes, we can because we performed a service on your vehicle, and until you pay us the money for it, or we make an agreement, I don't have to give you your vehicle back. Well, he starts, well, give me my fucking vehicle, bro. And I'm like, sir, look, you can scream all you want to. It's not going to change the situation. I have no control over this. There's nobody here for me to go to. My rule is I am not allowed to give you your vehicle until you pay the bill. Will you call somebody? I'm like, there's nobody to call because our service manager, I did have his cell phone number and I could call him if there was an emergency after hours, but Lord knows he loved to give you crap about calling him every time. If you ever had to call him, it was like, can't you handle it yourself? You can't handle anything yourself. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, you get paid the big money, not me. So, you avoided calling him at all costs. And so the guy he's like, give me my fucking keys. And I'm like, no, sir, I'm sorry. I cannot do that. I was trying to remain calm. Like, I had been working with customers for long enough. I knew how to okay, here we go again. Anybody who's dealt with customers knows, I could get screamed at on the phone. People would start like, rah, 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 and I'm just like, sir or ma'am, a lot of times, ma'am, you're like, you can stop cursing at me or I'm going to hang up the phone. You can stop screaming at me or I'm going to hang up the phone. You can stop yelling at me or I'm going to hang up the phone. Unfortunately, when they're in front of you, you can't hang up the phone. So he starts screaming at me, you give me my keys, give me my fucking keys, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, sorry, I'm sorry. I've told you what needs to happen. You can pay the bill or you can, and even if you pay it tonight, you can gladly come in and talk to them in the morning and they might refund some of your money. I can't say. Well, next thing I know, like where I stood, there was like about a chest height counter and I had a window on each side, and so the people would come up and then I could, Then this guy grabbed me by the shoulders and pulled me through the window. Pulled me through the window. So that we could talk face to face. We were face to face. There was just a counter in between us. It wasn't like, the Great Divide. So he pulled me through the window. Well, of course, I will never forget. There was another lady working with me at the time. And she was... Now, I'm Gen X. So, you would think... a normal person at that point would have backed down, called police, something or other. I'm Gen X. I did not do that. Instead of backing down or whatever, now I'm pissed. And I start screaming at this guy. Oh my goodness. We had to have the police come and take him out and everything. And I will never forget the look on the lady's face that I was working with. She was an older lady. She was retired. She worked there part-time in the evenings. Oh my God. I come back in the office after all this commotion, the police and all that jazz. And she's sitting there. She's like, oh my God. Oh my God. Don't do this to me. And I'm like, don't do what? Like, it happened to me, not you. She goes, I thought you were going to die. I thought he was going to kill you and I was going to watch him do it. She's like, why on earth did you poke him in the chest? And I'm like, she's like, you just got up in his face and started poking him in the chest. She's like, I was sitting back there like, oh my God, I'm going to watch him kill her. I'm like, yeah, sorry. Gen X, not allowed to back down. I was just like, don't you touch me. Don't you touch me ever again. Oh, funny story. So I have a million more like that one. That's just what I have today. Oh, so, well, I didn't quite get this done. Almost. But I've been on here for 45 minutes, so I should probably get going unless you think we can muscle through and get it done. That was my funny story. Yeah, I was just chatting too much. I would have this done if I would have been talking. But, yeah, so that's my story for today. I'll give you that one. I have like a million other good stories I can tell you. Tales from the car dealership. Maybe I'll do that on Fridays. Tales from the car dealership. Ooh, that'll get you through the weekend, right? So, what kind of plans do y'all have this weekend? Let me know in the comments. I don't really have any. So, I don't know. I don't know what we're doing this weekend. I don't know. But let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking, what you guys are doing. If you want to hear more Kelly's or car dealership stories or book stuff or more crochet stuff or what you want to hear about. And then tell me what your weekend plans are. Tell me and tell me what you did nice for yourself today. Tell me what made you smile today. Because I hope that everybody does something every day to make yourself smile. Even if it's just for a few minutes. Even if it's just for a minute. Do something to make you smile. Maybe it's me. Maybe I make you smile because I'm crazy and goofy and weird and have weird stories. But whichever. I hope you all have a wonderful day. I appreciate each and every one of you. I truly do. It really means a lot to me. You would listen to me ramble on and on. I don't have a lot of people to talk to. Shocker. So I appreciate each and every one of you. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I will see you again on Monday. And choose love every day. Bye, everybody.